Joining me now to talk more about finances is Justin Brownlee, founder of Brownlee Wealth Management. Justin, great to have you on the show this morning. And as we look to round out 2025, you're joining us from Houston. What do our viewers need to know?
Well, Kristen, thanks for having me on. There have been a lot of changes both in the markets as well as tax policy. And so I think one thing that's going to impact a lot of individuals is just these SALT limit changes. As we head into the new year, we're going to head into tax season, and the decision of, do I take a standard deduction or do I take an itemized deduction? That's going to be a big one for every taxpayer in the coming months.
Taxes definitely on the mind. Estate planning, I believe, is something that you focus on too. What are the conversations that you're having with your client base this time of year as it relates to estate planning?
Well, Kristen, one of the bigger changes is the SALT limit change. And so if you're making under $500,000 a year, there is the potential to no longer be capped at $10,000 for state and local taxes. And I think that's going to have, changes in a few ways. I think that it could be a big impact on individuals and families taking an itemized deduction instead of a standard deduction. I also think it'll impact charitable organizations. The ability for charitable organizations to raise funds is, at the end of the day, is going to be easier if they're able to tell their donors that they have a meaningful tax impact and a meaningful tax benefit for giving. And so for the last 8 years, the vast majority of Americans who have given to charity have not been able to realize a deduction on their return. And so some of these changes will now allow for that to happen.
You work with oil and gas professionals, I see here, Justin. Is there anything that relates specifically to that sector as we look to turn into 2026?
Kristen, I think there's two things. When we think about oil and gas in general, we are wondering, are we going to have a fourth straight year of underwhelming prices? Is oversupply going to continue to be a concern? Some of the result in that in the market that we've seen really for the past 2-3 years is enormous amounts of M&A. We've seen giant publicly traded companies merging, acquiring smaller companies. We've also seen an extreme focus for oil and gas companies and oil and gas stocks for cutting expenses. And so with oversupply being a dynamic, with lackluster demand potentially being here for a fourth straight year, I think we're going to continue to see a focus on health of balance sheet, and we'll see what that does with oil and gas stocks. Kristen, I also think there's a potential just with estate planning to be mindful of the $30 million exemption for married couples and the different planning opportunities around that.
Yeah. Look, I do want to talk about the equity markets because stocks and their performance certainly is part of any sort of financial plan. What are your expectations for 2026 as we see the S&P 500 up just shy of 18% in 2025?
Kristen, I think the big question that we will continue to ask in 26 and 25 for the first time in several years really gave us some of this. Will investors be rewarded for investing in public markets outside of the S&P 500? And so 2025 has been an interesting year because it really has been one of the unique years of the past 10 or 15 where an investor has been rewarded for having international exposure. You've been rewarded for having some small cap, some value exposure. And so I think that's going to be the big question. Will 2026 continue to reward diversified investors, or will it revert back and just offer significant gains for tech stocks?
Yeah, of course, AI has been a key focus this year throughout and led most of the gains that we saw since some of the volatility in April earlier this year. Justin, in terms of the goals that you're working with for your client base, what are realistic goals that you anticipate for 2026?
At the end of the day, we have no idea what's going to happen in the markets in 2026. And so we want to take a timeless approach, and we want to continue to own an excellent portfolio and own great companies and do so for decades. And so that'll be the focus yet again here in 26.
All right, Justin Brownlee, founder of Brownlee Wealth Management, joining us this morning from Houston. Justin, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.